Let's talk about mass incarceration. It's a hot topic right now. I live mass incarceration at 40 years old. A lot of black men, black folks, black people live mass incarceration. Uh, and it just depends on where you want to start from, where you want to talk, where you want to start the talk at. Mass incarceration was here well before I was born. Like I told you, I'm almost 40 years old. I'm not 40 yet quite yet. I'll be 40 in a couple months. But mass incarceration was here well before I was born, 1980. You understand? So it just depends on where you want to talk, where you want to start from. I'm reluctant to start from slavery, being the first form, I guess, of mass incarceration. If you really want to be real, cattle slavery. You know, um, this would be another more sophisticated, in my opinion, a more sophisticated modern day mass incarceration is a more sophisticated version of cattle slavery in the 1800s. And there's actually numbers out to come out and say that there's more black folks under incarceration under the judicial system in the judicial system than there was on the plantations in the 1800s. So that's deep. You understand me? There's more black folks in incarceration today than there was on the plantations and then slaves on the plantations in the 1800s. So that's a big leap. You understand me? So from slavery, black folks had slave codes. We had black codes. We had, right after slavery, we had the intense terroristic attacks from the government and from the Ku Klux Klan, these were government officials. These were police officers. These were, include the KKK. Pretty much, white supremacy was the mind state of that era. You understand me? If you look at the presidency with Trump, people talking about white supremacy and racism right now, but these are the ancestors. You understand? This is the ancestral past of America and just the hate for black skin and black folks. So then we had Jim Crow, black codes, you understand me, where laws were overtly directed towards black folks and criminalizing black people. Segregation was a big thing. You understand me? Segregation was a big thing. Desegregation was a big thing. It's treated as if it was a compromise so black folks can live better, but it was a compromise so black folks could live better. But in desegregation, the terroristic attacks that were happening to entire black communities, because we had entire cities. Mobs of white folks would come and attack that city. The government, if you look at the history of in Florida, the United States government, they got an army together and attacked that black place, where there was nothing but black folks there. You understand me? So these places where there was black states all over America and stuff, these places that were black communities, black states, they were being attacked. So integration was more of a thing of saying, okay, how can we stop this white population from attacking this black population? So we had that, and it was a sacrifice. If you read about that transition, you need to go study the history of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and look at that transition. Look at all the things that black folks had going for themselves, and we gave all that up to integrate so we could stop the terroristic attacks from white Americans. You understand me? This was pushed by the government and everything else. So in that compromise, we had to give our children to a people who hated us. So as you go look at the story of Ruby Bridges, shout out to Ruby Bridges, who's still alive. These people are still alive. When we integrated into these school systems, our parents had to give. You look at that story. Their parents did not want to have Ruby in these schools, because why would you want to give your children, the children who you love, who God put you here to care for, to these people who hate you? How do you think they're going to treat your children? And we never had a say in what they taught our children, which is directly connected to mass incarceration, as you can see, the school to prison pipelines. So now everybody's able to look at this data, and we're going back, and we're able to intellectualize all of these things about mass incarceration and what happened to these mass incarcerated people. but I lived it. I lived being pushed out of the school system because I couldn't connect and identify with the information that was given me. Everybody they was putting in front of me was white, and something about my characteristic as a child. I was always in the principal's office. I was always getting suspended. I was always being punished, which is something that you might think you deserve. Oh, I was a bad child, but my wife being in education, for almost 20 years teaching and such. She's taught in schools, quote unquote, which were black schools, where discipline was the main modale, and she's taught in white schools, and her friends have taught in white schools where you weren't even allowed to yell at the children. You weren't allowed to raise your voice at the children. In white schools, they don't deal with discipline. It's a looser. They have a larger margin for error than in black schools. As soon as you walk through the school, you're going through a metal detector. They deal with discipline heavily. If you get in trouble in school, the police are involved. It becomes a police charge. So, when I was coming up in the 90s, and in the 80s, I guess, in grade school and such, when I started my school thing, I was always, being pushed out and being, disciplined and treated as if I did not fit in these environments, like I was doing something was wrong with me, and that's the popular claim. The children fail school. You failed school. Oh, you failed this grade. You failed that grade. But the psychosis in which we're seeing is that the school is purposely failing the children, and we have to ask ourselves why. And me being one of those children who couldn't read that good in third grade. I graduated high school, couldn't damn near read. I was able to read functionally, but I couldn't read a book. I was sounding out words, and to a person I am now who loves to read, who I've read so many books. I've logged in countless hours of reading books, and I love information, but I was deemed somebody who wasn't who couldn't be educated, in the school systems. So just that disconnect. There's a warrior spirit inside of these children, and when you go into a school system that is all white supremacy, we don't know why we're rejecting it. We don't know why we're rejecting the academia with children. You understand me? But psychologically, they do. Psychologically, white folks who put this school system together, and hasn't changed since integration, they know they were disenfranchising black children. At the very least, they knew they were disenfranchising black children from an education. At the very worst, it was diabolically some white supremacy scheme against white children to hurl us into these prison for profit camps. And let me explain something to you. All jails are for profit. All jails are for profit, not just quote unquote publicly traded and for profit prisons. All jails are for profit. This is why, America being, the spirit of capitalist it is, these people were going to sue the jail systems. Like, hey, you guys are making money. So the government had to open it up for the big players who wanted to also profit off of locking folks up, because it's only right. Because the government can't be the only one profiting off of locking folks up. So they made it a public thing where it could be publicly traded. Now, everybody's like, oh, for-profit prisons, which is a demonstrative thing. It's demonstrative. But the same thing is happening in prisons and government-funded prisons. These prisons are for profit. You understand me? These prisons make a profit off every individual in that jail that day. So anyway, let's go back to mass incarceration. I wanted to talk about my personal experience, but I want to kind of give you a quick little backdrop without giving you a quick little. Well, I'll give you an in-depth backdrop about it. I don't want to go into the history. This is not a history lesson. This is an in my lifetime lesson. An experience with mass incarceration. I remember, and just so I'm gonna start from school. We have to start from the origin. I believe how and the studies show the school to prison pipeline. So these are they said if a child can't read by the age of by the third grade, these are the children who are going to these prisons. These are the children who will be into these prisons. So I wanted to analyze about what is actually going on in these schools that is deeming all these intelligent black children not able to be educated. I don't know the term for it. Excuse me. I want to say I'm gonna make up something for you right quick. Not eligibly, not eligibly. Not eligibly. Not able to be educated. What is this thing that's deeming all of these black children not able to be educated? You understand me? And then come to find out these are our future doctors, scientists, lawyers, thinkers, inventors who never actually got a chance. You understand me? So I'm looking at the school systems. In my personal experience with the school systems, I was pushed out of the school. There were none of the people. Nobody looked like me who I was being taught about. And it didn't engage me. There was nothing about, it wasn't talking about me. Nothing about the characters that were taught to me in school were displayed about me. And so now you get pushed out into these environments where you are from, which they call hoods. You understand me? Where there's criminality everywhere. We can go into everything, as to why it's there. But we don't have what we had with the Tulsa Oklahomas. We don't have these communities. After segregation, we gave up our communities, and we had these places where pretty much white folks policed. Up until recently, well, it's not just white folks, but now it's black, white, Latino, all the policemen, all police forces police our communities. You understand me? We are our communities are like police states. These are heavily policed places. Like as soon as you walk out your door, police are walking around. When I was coming up in the 80s and the 90s, crack. It was crack everywhere. It was these characters, these black characters, these people who were funny. You understand me? These people who were funny, who were doing things that adults shouldn't be doing. So it was funny to children to see these characters walking around your neighborhood. But everybody had family members who was on this crack. And come to find out, the crack was brought in by the government. The crack is actually cocaine mixed with baking soda and other things, and actually crack is actually diluted cocaine. You understand me? But crack is a Schedule I drug, which has a higher penalty, and cocaine is not. And you find cocaine and opioids. You find that all in your CVS and Walgreens and such. You understand? All your pills and such. The opioids and such. So we heavily users of it. I don't think the American public understands that. This crack that they're talking about is cocaine, and this cocaine that they're talking about is in our products, is in our Walgreens. You understand? It's in our CVS, is in our Walmarts, it's in our drugstores. So anyway, when I was coming up, the crack thing, it was all in our neighborhood. So we were pushed out there, and some of my friends we sold crack. Some of us sold crack. You understand me? It was a way to make some money if you was poor. We definitely smoked weed. We definitely smoked marijuana to cope with the traumatic stress of what you was going through as a young black child. You don't know it. I'm able to intellectualize, like hindsight is 2020. So I'm able to intellectualize it now. But I didn't know I was a part of that. I didn't know I was smoking weed to deal with my traumatic stress of not having a place, no space in schools. And when you don't have a place in school, it makes a hostile home environment, because you get in trouble in school, you get in trouble at home. You understand me? And I was catching cases. I was getting arrested. I talk about in my book, Massachusetts Jumping Jim Crow for Cannabis. You understand me? I talk about an arrest that I had I talk about my first abduction by police. I wasn't arrested. I was abducted by police. Me and a couple of friends in the back of the park. Somebody was robbed in the park. I guess white folks was robbed in the park. We was in the middle of town. So there was the north side of town, which was kind of like the black side, and it was the south side of town. The south side of town was more so the white side of town. And then we was kind of like in the middle. We was like in the parks in the middle. And I guess somebody white got robbed in one of those parks. So anyway, we in the back of the park in the cut, and the cops came and snatched us all up. They found a gun in the park. So they snatched us all up. I'm 13, We was interrogated for over 12 hours, beat up, and all that. And, you first of all, you're not even supposed to be spoken to without your parents, you understand me? You're a minor. You understand me? So that was my first introduction with actually being handcuffed. So we was beat up, and then we was dumped off the next day in front of my mom's house. They was like, where y'all want to be dumped? I was like, yo, I gotta dump me off. They was like, we only making one stop. The cop said in a van. It was an unmarked paddy wagon, whatever van. And I was like, y'all got to dump me off over here. My mama ain't gonna believe this. My moms came running out, and she was like, where y'all taking them from? Where y'all take? They didn't answer her. They just threw the bikes out and just dipped. And then my second encounter which was my first arrest, was at 14. I was arrested for marijuana and charged as an adult. I was charged with sale to a minor. You understand? I was a minor myself, and I was charged with sale to a minor. And you know, one of my classmates wanted to buy some weed from me. I had weed, but I wasn't selling it. So, you know, I was kind of offended, and so I gave him the tobacco guts of the inside of the cigar. For that, they charged me with sale to a minor. So I never sold the weed, let alone didn't even sell no weed to the kid. You know, I sold him some guts, some dirt, some inside of the blunt, the tobacco. And I was charged with sale to a minor of a Schedule I substance, and I was charged as an adult at 14 years old. You understand me? So this is what mass incarceration is. When a lot of people don't understand that. Yeah, black men is getting arrested, but they really start arresting us as boys. They start arresting us as children. They are attacking children. So here's all this marijuana policy being rolled out about black men being in mass incarceration, but they're heightening the arrest on the children again. They're heightening the arrest on the children with these marijuana task force. You know, if you look at Colorado, you know, Colorado is showing all the white supremacists how to do it. You know, they're legalizing. I think Colorado, all drugs are legal. I think they legalized everything. I mean, the legalization of marijuana was so sweet. They were able to increase the arrest record in black and brown neighborhoods and black and brown people by 50%. This is during legalization. They got 700. They gave out 700 marijuana licenses. Only gave one out to a black woman, and she recently transferred ownership over to her husband. But 700 marijuana licenses out. How you increase arrests in black and brown neighborhoods by 50% for marijuana? So they got some type of alchemy where they figured out how they can still make a drug legal and still arrest folks of it, you know, for it in a mass incarceration mass incarceration style. You know, if you look at it, you know, 50% increase in arrests. How did that happen? I'm gonna tell you how it happened, because Massachusetts is trying to follow suit. You create a marijuana task force. So you talking about? They said if you took all of marijuana arrests out of play, that would decrease the population in our jails by 40%. This was with no marijuana task force. With no marijuana task force, we had marijuana mass incarceration for black and brown men. This was without a task force. So if you create a marijuana task force during legalization to protect these businesses, who are predominantly white businesses, like I just told you in Colorado, 699 of the 700 businesses are white. You create a task force, a marijuana task force specified to protect these white cannabis businesses. You got Jim Crow all over again. You got black and brown, you got black and white laws. You got black and white codes, black codes all over again. You got Jim Crow all over again. And it's going to increase the arrest because you created a task force to specify, attention on marijuana, the illegality aspect of marijuana. You understand? So the mass incarceration is going to ensue. But here's the other caveat. They're trying to expunge, they're trying to erase the records of the victims of mass incarceration. So they're trying to erase the fact that they mass incarcerated us from history. They're trying to erase that from the history books. And at the same time, they want to continue mass incarceration arrests. That's wild. That's wicked. You understand me? So that's one of the craziest things going on. You know, but Where was I at in my own story? Okay, yeah. So in high school, I had 6 open cases around marijuana and other things, just all of the things that come with being out there on the streets and being, you know, you know, pushed out into this type of, living. You know, if you're a black person smoking weed, you a thug. That's your category. You a thug. You understand me? If you a white person smoking weed, you artsy, you creative, you all this other stuff like that. So this is the stigmatism that we had to deal with marijuana, mass incarceration, and particularly, but just mass incarceration, period. You know, our skin color is the crime. You know, we go outside our house, we roll around, we drive around. You understand? Our skin color is what they looking for. They criminalize what we look like. So it don't matter if we doing marijuana. Probably in Massachusetts, if you're a white person, you safer. You know, as a matter of fact, it's safer for a white person doing heroin right now than it is for a black person selling weed. You know, they got all types of facilities for heroin addicts and all these type of opioid uses and abuses and safe places for these people to go. You understand me? And if you get arrested, they're going to give you a class, you know, a drug rehabilitation class. But you getting hit up left and right for marijuana still, big time. Like they developed a mass incarceration task force for marijuana again. I don't know what the penalties is going to be for that. They're going to be hitting people for all types of things because it's still federally illegal. So are the penalties, these are federal crimes. You understand? What is a task force? A federal task force. You understand me? So it's not clear to the people what's happening. You understand me? I'm a big advocate, proponent, you know, a big person who speaks out against mass incarceration because I experienced it. Along with my story, you know, it just sticks to you like glue everywhere you go. You know, you're being pulled over. Of course, you're gonna get your car tossed, which I've had. I wrote a couple other books. I wrote another book that I'll be releasing. I won't give you the title of that book, but I'll be releasing another book that I wrote on my experience with, pretentious stops. You know, what happened to Philando Castro, you know, just being pulled over by police all the time for no reason other than your skin color. You understand me? And then after that, they find something else and have some things going on. So I detail that in my other book because I had an arrest. I was arrested driving through Ohio. I was arrested for driving while black through Ohio. You understand me? And upon searching my vehicle, they found marijuana concentrates that I had. Meanwhile, you know, marijuana concentrates, they're odorless. These are odorless. These were, you know, odorless marijuana concentrates. You know, you'll see it on the video. I have a video of it. The dog walked around the car. The dog didn't hit the car, which means the dog didn't signal the officer that there was any drugs or anything in there. He tossed my car and everything else like that and found my marijuana concentrates, you know, and arrested me on that. They tried to get me to cop out to 3 years. You understand? I had to. I spent about $50,000 defending myself. You understand me? I spent $18,000 on a lawyer. Going back and forth because I'm in Massachusetts, going back and forth, having to get hotels over the years, all that stuff like that. Probably spent around $50,000 defending myself. You understand me? Cars impounded, renting cars, planes, all that stuff. You understand me? To defend myself in that way, and the judge looked at the footage and saw that there was no reason for the stop. There was no reason for the stop. I was driving impeccable. You understand me? So, you know, this is something that black folks have to continue to deal with. So anytime they make a law like a marijuana task force, who you think they're gonna be arresting? When they make a law in Massachusetts like no smoking and driving, who you think they're gonna be arresting? Who you think they're gonna be pulling over? Who you think gonna get the potential stops? Black and brown folks. So that's why I'm saying I'm going to say the public doesn't really understand, because in order to get programs like legalization and social equity, you know, the public had to be notified about mass incarceration, and the public was grossed out by mass incarceration. You understand me? The public was grossed out by mass incarceration, how only one group of individuals, black and brown folks, was experiencing mass incarceration. You understand? And they took it and said, hey, we need to do something about it. We need to legalize it. We need to decriminalize it. We don't want to see any more Mass incarceration. Why was marijuana legalized, decriminalized? Because of mass incarceration. You understand? Why was marijuana, why was social equity programs given out to folks, to help black folks, black and brown folks? Because of mass incarceration. So now here it is. Everybody getting to open up their cannabis stores, white folks mostly. Only one black person is opened up in Massachusetts, at Oasis, Pure Oasis. And the predominantly been white folks. I think they gave away close to 200. I think it's like 170. I don't know, 180, but they gave away close to 200 licenses, non-social equity applicant licenses. These are the people who were supposed to be getting their licenses first. They gave about almost 200, somewhere between 170 and 190, something like that, licenses to non-social equity applicants. You understand? I think only once as social equity applicant person opened up. I know it's only one black person who has a retail store, Pure Oasis. I don't know if any other things is, but I think that's it. You understand me? So here it is again, black folks. I'm not laughing about it, but black folks is left out of the legal side of cannabis and open arms in the illegal side. You understand me? And they coined it, ironically, they call it the black market. You understand me? The black market. You understand me? So if mass incarceration was such a horrible thing, and we're seeing the numbers on that, and we're seeing the systemic predatory behaviors of our nation, America, behind mass incarceration, why are we letting the mass incarceration continue? You understand me? Why is the mass incarceration being allowed? You understand? White folks get their legal weed industry, they multi-billion-dollar weed industry, and they get a whole new, brand new marijuana task force specified in protecting that legal weed industry. Look at all the rhetoric. Oh, the black market is taking your money. The black market is taking your money. The black market is the illicit market is taking your money. The illicit market. You understand? That's code for more black and brown arrests. Anytime you have a law given out here in America, you're going to have more black and brown arrests. That's just what it is. If you ask the average cop in Massachusetts, which I have, did you mass incarcerate black folks? They say no. They'll say no. You know what I'm saying? Here it is. The data says that police mass incarcerated black and brown folks. That's what the data say. That's what the numbers say. But if you ask the average cop, did you mass incarcerate black folks? They'll say no. They didn't. So you're dealing with a psychosis who doesn't understand the sensitivity of where this is coming from. So you either believe that black people are inherently criminal and we doing all the crimes, so we deserve to be locked up and deserve to be arrested, or you believe there's white supremacy going on. So there's an inherent target, because the statistics show that black and brown people and white folks, we all use drugs at the same rate. We use the same rate across the board. So why is it only black and brown people being arrested? You understand? We have to ask ourselves that. There's a system out there, and people are just now seeing it and feeling it and looking at the numbers, but I lived it. I lived where they target black children. You understand? Police. And they charge us as adults. This is crazy. I have a friend of mine who was an associate of mine, a white man. He was arrested for heroin. He had bulk heroin possession in Florida, coming from Florida to Massachusetts. And they gave him a class. You understand? They gave him a class for bulk heroin possession. He was given a class. You understand? And that was it. You understand me? No jail time, nothing. So, but if a black person, they try to give me 3 years for marijuana concentrates. They try to get me to cop out for 3 years for marijuana concentrates that they illegally found in my car while I was minding my damn business, driving the free highway. My only crime was being a black man. You understand me? So we have to understand that this is you. You have to protect us, America, white America, black America, brown America, Asians, Indians. You got to protect us, especially Asians and Indians and all these other minorities who are able to benefit off the minority status that black folks are getting their butt kicked out here, but not actually going through. Asians aren't going through mass incarceration. Indians aren't going through mass incarceration. but you're in the social equity programs. You're able to benefit from the programs. So you guys need to come out and protect us. Jewish folks, you guys need to come out and protect us. Because you guys are able to get minority status, and you guys are able to get the same status of those who are disenfranchised. So we need these groups to stop, us from being killed cold-blooded in the street. We need these groups to make the mass incarceration stop. Not just come along when it's time to benefit from social equity programs, but when it's time to talk about what's really going on with black folks and how can we make it stop. And mass incarcerating victims, y'all know where to be found. Nobody's nowhere to be found. But when it comes time to share the social equity programs, everybody's saying, oh, it's not fair to say just black and brown people get it. Why? Black and brown people the only one being mass incarcerated? You understand me? You want to deal with the issue of what we going through without dealing with the folks in it. You understand me? When it's time to benefit from it, everybody's around. You understand me? But here it is. I'm telling you guys, the mass incarceration is going to continue. Will you help us out? You understand me? The ADLU. You understand? I believe that's the thing, man. I'm sorry. You got to forgive me. This is my introduction into politics. Because they say, hey, the victims of mass incarceration are invited. Here, we did you wrong, victims of mass incarceration. So I got here that I'm just a regular dude, and ain't nobody speaking up for the victims of mass incarceration. Nobody's saying nothing for the victims of mass incarceration. You understand me? And then the programs and benefits that was meant for the victims of mass incarceration is going to everybody else. Because the victims of mass incarceration is nowhere to be found. Because they put the programs out online in places, instead of coming to our neighborhoods and blocks every day like the police do to mass incarcerate us, and they're going to continue to do that unless you guys stand up and say, hey, we're going to look out for the real victims of mass incarceration here. We're going to make sure, this shit stops in America. You understand me? This white supremacy thing stops in America. And I told you, it starts with the schools, the education. We're being taught lies. If you investigate that stuff, it's predominantly lies. And then you ask yourself, for what purpose? To teach white greatness to black children, to indoctrinate white greatness on the black children. And if they don't get it, if they can't assimilate to it, you understand me, then they are pushed out into a criminality type of living. You understand me? So we have to be real about this, or it's going to continue. And it's my passion. It's my passion, mass incarceration. I don't think, I'm personally against, people being held against their will in that fashion. But then let alone to see it's systematic, to see it's something that's being preyed on by the government. They're preying on the children. It's something that's still attacking our children. And that will still attack men and women, because as black men and brown men are ripped out of the households, our women suffer. And our black women, brown women, minority women, you have to understand, black men go through gender discrimination. Black and brown men go through gender discrimination, big time. Black men go through gender discrimination. That's why we in these jails. See, so in this patriarchal system, what do black men get? What is black man's position in this patriarchal system? Mass incarceration. We are the villains of society. That's our position. In this patriarchal system. We don't have a position of dominance in this patriarchy. You understand me? So our black women, you need to understand that your man, brown women, you need to understand your man goes through gender discrimination right alongside you. You understand me? If we're going to talk about gender discrimination, we need to really talk about it. You understand me? Because that's what white man is doing to all of us. White men is doing it to white women, doing it to all y'all, and they doing it to us. You understand me? We don't have no power position in gender discrimination. We don't control or run the government. Black men don't control or run any industry in America. That's sad to say. We don't run or control any industry in America. And that's due to gender discrimination. Every man is allowed to be the man over their woman except the black man. You understand? They put us in a position, where we get treated how we get treated. We in the jails. That's what we get for our role in patriarchy. So patriarchy ain't no role, or roses ain't no better roses for black men. And we got to understand our cultures were predominantly matriarchal. You understand me? These were matriarchal cultures. So with the conquistadors brought to America, what the white man brought to America is his patriarchy. You understand me? Even now around the world, the brown religions, the brown faith systems are matriarchal communities, matriarchal faith systems. You understand me? You know, except a lot of the other stuff that's been adopted, these other systems. But you talking about indigenous faith systems, these had women goddesses. So that's our natural proclivity. You know, everybody's under what white man's patriarchy, so we all following it. Black people, black men, a lot of men has lost their minds in here. But we are victims of patriarchy. We ain't victors. You understand? We not winning. Black men ain't winning under patriarchy. Colin Kirkpatrick tried to kneel down just to say stop killing black men. He got kicked. He's got his ass kicked. It's not popular. It is not popular to defend black men. It's not popular to stand up for black men, which is what black men is going through, mass incarceration. You know what I'm saying? Black men didn't even stand up for black men. When Colin Kirkpatrick, I hope I'm saying his name right, Kirkpatrick kneeled, you understand me? He kneeled for black men, black and brown men. You know, black men was being executed, you know, in the streets like dogs under the Obama administration. We was being killed out in the streets like dogs. You understand me? So, you know, I don't know why people so surprised when Trump get up in there, because just racism as usual for black folks, black men, brown men. Don't matter who's in the office. Don't matter who's in the presidency. You understand? We left out. You know, and right now they're trying to make this movement with our women, with black women and brown women, with gender discrimination, as they should. You know, the black women deserve to be at the head of society, as they should. They deserve that opportunity. You know, but they're keeping black men out. You know, they you know, but that's just what it is. But I want my women, black women, brown women, to look out for their men in these positions. Like, hey, our men is being gender discriminated too. Just give us a little shout out. We here for you, boo. But that's all, man. I talked a lot. Mass incarceration. If you want to know more, you want to hear from me, why don't you go grab my book? Grab my book. Massachusetts Jumping Jim Crow for Cannabis. I have that one out. I'm going to have another part two, that one coming out. And then I got another book detailing some more arrests and some things that I experienced with mass incarceration. But you can go grab on Kindle, Amazon, Massachusetts Jumping Jim Crow for Cannabis. I'm trying to come through with another edit to give you an audio version of that, and also to give you a hard copy of it. But right now you can grab it on Amazon. Massachusetts Jumping Jim Crow for Cannabis. My name is Maur. Peace. Thank you for your ear.